Yo, what is up YouTube? I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. If you're clicking on this video, it's because you want to know how I would rank all the bosses in RuneScape 3 from lowest to highest level PVM. I get asked from a lot of people kind of where they should start on their PVM adventure, kind of what bosses they should do to start making that money. In this video, I kind of set it up from the lowest level of PVM if you don't know anything and you're just getting into it, and then we climb up that ladder each tier by tier until we get to the in-game PVM. Before we get into the video, quick shout out to Jack Meow for commenting on our last video, and if you want a chance to get shouted out in the next video, make sure you guys comment down below one of the bosses on this tier list that you're trying to learn yourself. Also, only 25% of you guys who viewed our last video are subscribed, so hey, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe with post notifications on for all things RuneScape 3. With all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into this tier list video. Before we get into this tier list video, a quick disclaimer for you guys. This is just my thoughts on how these bosses should be ranked to help new players know where to start and what to do next. So if you disagree, that's completely fine. All I ask is we just have a productive conversation in the comment section. That way, not only do you guys help me understand things better and where you're coming from, but also the new players that are watching this video, kind of give them some pointers as well. So here we are with our tier list, everyone. It has just about every single RuneScape 3 boss, and it will start at in-game PVM, higher level, high level, medium, average, low, and starting PVM. Now starting PVM is going to be for people who have never done PVM before, and those are going to be the bosses that you start with. And if you're just starting out, this is going to be kind of like a ladder or a chronological list in which you can follow the bosses. If you know one boss, make sure you know the ones before that, and then you can start learning the ones after that in that same order. First one on our list, at the lowest of the low, we have Giant Mole. Now I really wanted to put him up here in the medium, maybe even higher level PVM, but this is going to be the first boss on our starting PVM list. If you guys have never done Giant Mole, he's super easy. You just follow him around the room. You can eat through basically all the mechanics. He doesn't hit hard, and he really doesn't have that much health. A super easy boss, and definitely one of the first bosses you should do if you're new to PVM. Next on our list, we have Chaos Elemental. And she can be fun because she has this little ability where if you have an open inventory slot, she can dismantle your weapons, and it's super annoying. And to top that off, she is in deep wilderness, so be careful for them PKers. But other than those two factors, she has not that many life points, and you can kill her quite quickly. Next up on our starting PVM, we have KBD, or King Black Dragon. Now, the thing that makes him slightly more difficult than the other two is that you do have to use anti-fires or super anti-fires. If you don't, you'll end up taking a lot of magic damage that's unnecessary and actually makes the boss quite difficult. Other than that, if you protect magic, he doesn't have too much health, and if you have a decent revo bar set up, you can start getting consistent kills at KBD. For our final boss on the starting PVM section, we have KQ, or Cowfight Queen. Now I put her over the other three mainly because she has a lot of life points. She doesn't have a lot of mechanics, but because she has so much life points, you're able to start building rotations and understanding how to work your abilities. If you guys don't know how to work your abilities or how to kind of come up with a rotation, I do have an ultimate ability breakdown series, so I'll go ahead and put a card up in the top, but you guys can watch those videos, kind of learn how the abilities work, and I do give a few sample action bars within those videos. Now that's going to complete our starting PVM section. These four bosses are a really good starting point for anyone who hasn't done any bit of PVM ever. They're not too hard, they can be killed super easy, and you don't have to worry about a lot of mechanics. So moving one step up to our lower level PVM section, this is going to contain mainly a lot of our God War 1 bosses and a few others. And I could go in depth on every single boss like I did with the starters, but I feel like this video would end up being an hour long. So let's go ahead and start populating this low level section with Bandos, Corporal Beast, Commander Zilliana, Zammy Whammy, if I can get him in front there, Dagonoffs, and Kiara. I really do see these 6 bosses as the next step from our starting PVM section. I wouldn't put them in the average because they are typically easier with higher level gear, but if you're just starting out, they will give you a little bit of challenge, but as long as you're protecting the right things and dodging a few mechanics, you can get through these bosses pretty easy. And to top that off, you will be making good money as well because Berserker rings go for a hefty chunk, and so does Armadillo armor due to the components needed for invention. Moving on to our average level PVM section. Now this is going to contain a lot of our God Wars Dungeon 2 bosses and a few others of course, but we're going to start it off with QBD or Queen Black Dragon. That's going to be followed up with the boy Jad. Then our God War 2 bosses, Twin Furies, Vindicta, Hellweir, and Gregorovic. So with these 6 bosses in the average level section, they do have a lot more mechanics than the ones we've talked on previously. So there's a lot more things that make them more complex, where you have to dodge more mechanics, maybe even prayer switching like with Jad, or needs to be able to do more damage because the bosses have more life points. Now this is the level of where a lot of players get to and they're comfortable with that and don't really go too much further, and that's completely fine because I was in the same boat myself starting out. And to be fair, you also make a lot of good money. I know lances are still going for about 45 mil from Vindicta, and Hellweir is consistent money with those Lantanine drops. And if you guys disagree with my tier list, that's completely fine. Let me know down in the comment sections your thoughts on things you would change around. I'm really interested and I will respond to all the comments. This is just to kind of help people that are starting out, that have never bossed or are in that intermediate section where they want to know what to do next to progress in PVM. This is kind of why I made this. Moving on to our mid-level PVM section. Now this is kind of where things get inconsistent on like the God Wars 1, the God Wars 2. There's just a bunch of different bosses that make up this category, but we're gonna start it off with Croesus, followed up by Huracan, then the Magister, Legions, Rex Matriarchs, and to lead the pack of the mid-level PVM, we have Rots. Croesus is a mid-level PVM boss because 1, it is a group boss, and 2, you need decent level skills to be able to do it in a 4-man and make a lot of money. However, you still can make a lot of money in publics, and if it was like a public encounter Croesus, it would definitely be a starter PVM section. But if you're doing 4-mans, it's going to definitely find its way into this mid-level section. And the other 5 bosses in the medium level PVM section, the reason they kind of fall in this category is just because they're able to hit for a lot of damage. Huracan's really the only exception where it's just a long fight in order to get to Huracan, but you take a lot of damage over that time, so you have to be able to be smart with your supplies and make it to the actual Huracan fight. These 5 bosses, there's a lot of mechanics that you have to learn, but if you don't learn them, they're very punishing and you take a lot of damage. But once you master those mechanics, these bosses really aren't too difficult, and you guys will be able to start getting consistent kills on these medium level PVM bosses as well. It's just all about learning the mechanics, and once you have an understanding of how to do a rotation to do damage and how to utilize certain abilities to dodge certain mechanics, you'll be in a really good standing, and PVM just gets a lot easier from that point. Now that we've covered all the medium level PVM bosses, let's get into the high level PVM bosses. If you guys are killing these bosses, 1, you're probably making some good money, and 2, you probably have a really good understanding of how abilities work, how to do damage, and understand a lot of the mechanics, because a lot of the times mechanics are repeated through different types of bosses, whether that's a shield res, something you have to devotion, or get out of the way of. So starting off the high level PVM section, we have Nex, followed by a Raxor, and this is going to be like high in rage Raxor because low in rage isn't too difficult. And then we're going to have all of the EDs, so ED1 bosses, ED2 bosses, ED3 bosses, And honestly, that's going to complete the high level section. Now I know there's a lot here, but if you look at it in the sense of like all the EDs grouped together, there's really like 5 bosses here. EDs, I kind of look at them like a fight cave situation where you just kind of go through 3 super strong bosses and then a lot of trash mobs. But let me go ahead and switch these around because Ambassador is definitely harder than Terror Kit. But if you're able to do the elite dungeon runs pretty consistently, you're gonna make a lot of money, and that's where a lot of the high expensive drops come in, whether it's codexes or scales from Seiryu, or even the Eldritch crossbow pieces that you can get from Ambassador. And then don't get me started on all of the Torva and Virtus pieces that next can drop you, and it's pretty good drop chance, I'll be honest with you, or the Scythe pieces and Nox components from Araxor. Just this whole high level PVM section is where a lot of money can be made, and when you're doing these consistently, you've definitely mastered a lot of the things you need to know for PVM to be successful. Now that we've talked about all the high level PVM, let's go one step further. Let's go into the higher level PVM section. Now these bosses might not necessarily drop the most expensive drops, however there are a few that do drop really expensive drops, but they're going to test your knowledge on the mechanics. They're really going to push the mechanics that you've learned from all the other bosses to that next level, especially when you're climbing up in rage on the certain bosses or trying to deal with defenses to not take a lot of damage. If you're able to do all of these bosses on the higher level PVM section, I do believe you can do every other single boss that we have talked about so far pretty successfully, and I would say you're almost a high-end PVMer. Starting off this section, we have KK, or Calfight King. Now this is the solo version, because if you are in a duo, it's super easy because all you need is someone to Voke and Devotion. However, this is a solo encounter KK. Basically, it's going to challenge you on a lot of the mechanics, and you're going to always be kept on your toes because you're going to have to be able to count autos to stun at the right time or freedom at the right time to avoid getting green. Next, we have Archglacior. Then Zuck hard mode, Care Pack hard mode, Telos high in rage, and good old Raksha. Now if you're killing these bosses consistently, you're going to be making a lot of money. I mean, that's a given. Raksha drops the Greater Ricochet Codex. You have the Fractured Staff of Armadillo from Care Pack. You have the sword pieces from Zuck and the Tempest, which is a bill right now, I believe, and then all of the pieces from Glacior as well. And then don't forget about Telos. Telos high in rage is great money. Now you'll be making great money, but these are all bosses that are going to really test your knowledge of all the mechanics, like I said. But if you are killing these bosses consistently, I would consider you a high level PVMer because you have mastered most, if not all, the mechanics that you'll need to know for PVM. But there's always the what next scenario. So for the in-game PVM, we have a few special bosses for you guys that are not only going to test your ability to do PVM, but others. So these are going to be a lot of group bosses except for one. And this one boss you'll know once I put him up on screen, but he's gonna test basically all of your knowledge of PVM, but to the max, harder than any of the levels in the higher level section. So starting off the in-game PVM content, we have raids, so Beastmaster and Yaka. This is going to take about a team of 7 to 8. There are people that can solo it, so don't get me wrong, and those people are on next level crack. But by doing these, there's going to be multiple roles per raid, and it's really going to test your knowledge on not just the roles, but different PVM situations and how you work with others. Next is Virago, who is also a group boss as well, and he has a lot of different mechanics and different components to it, which makes it super confusing when starting out. I was able to somehow get one Virago kill myself, but I definitely need to practice it more in order to be more consistent. Next is, hey, you guessed it, next, Angel of Death. Now this is also another group boss. It can be done solo because there's those 0.001% PVMers that are cracked out of their mind. Shout out to the boy Evil Lucario. What a Chad. What a Chad. But this is usually done in about 4 to 7 man teams, and it's going to test your knowledge. You're going to have to deal with a lot of mechanics. You're going to have to keep your health high, and it's going to be really pressuring, especially in a team situation where some people might not know what to do in certain situations. So it's really about utilizing your teamwork and your own knowledge to have a successful kill. And the final boss on our PVM low to high tier list is the man, the myth, the legend, Sorlak. Now, myself, I have not even killed Solak. Very tough boss. Honestly, I've never gave it a chance because I'm super intimidating. So if you guys have any pointers for me down in the comment section, I would really appreciate it. But I know Sorlak is definitely a top end boss. It's usually done in about a 2 to 4 man, but it has been soloed. Again, there's the cracked people out there. But it's definitely a boss that I want to learn. But it's going to be, one, super rewarding if you can kill it, because blights are expensive and so are grimoires. But it is going to test you on all your mechanics, and it's going to be super high damaging in comparison to all the bosses that we touched on before. But that is our PVM tier list from low to high. Again, you guys might disagree with me, and that's completely fine. So please use the comment section. Let me know what you disagree, what you agree on, and give me some pointers myself, because I'm not an expert when it comes to PVM, but I'm always trying to learn and I'm always trying to get better. But that is it for the video, everyone. If you made it this far, you are a real one, and I appreciate every single one of you. Again, if you haven't yet, like the video and subscribe with post notifications on for all things RuneScape related. I really hope you guys found this video educational, and if you are new to PVM, hopefully you have a better understanding of how you should climb that ladder to get to that top end PVM and start making some crazy amounts of money. With all that being said, I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.